Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful. And because someone left us the ultimate spoiler alert centuries ago, we are here simply watching them play out in real time. Ancient lines were drawn, and today's chaos is matching them line for line. We track every hit, connect every dot, so the patterns become impossible to miss, even for the biggest skeptics. Hey guys, welcome back. Let's get started with our Fury news update. Top stories. The Democratic Congressman Al Green of Texas was escorted out of the House chamber Tuesday night during the President's State of the Union address. He held up a sign that read, "Black people aren't apes." I couldn't see it because the angle we were watching, the guy had grabbed it and pulled it down before he had a chance to show that to our camera anyway. Turns out this is the second straight year the outspoken Trump critic has been removed from a presidential address to Congress. The sign appeared to reference a racist image of former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama that President Trump had posted, then deleted on Truth Social earlier this month. Man, there are some people that just do not like Trump. I posted the Two Witnesses live clip this morning about Donald Trump and Elon Musk potentially being the two witnesses. And boy, already starting to get some hate for that. I mean, like, it's a possibility, you know? When the two witnesses, one of their attributes is that they torment the whole world. If you find yourself tormented, it should cause you to stop, pause, and maybe think, wait a minute, maybe I'm the one who's on the wrong side of the aisle here. Anyway, that's my advice for Al Green. In other Washington news, the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division sued UCLA today. The lawsuit accuses the university of allowing a hostile work environment for Jewish and Israeli faculty and staff in violation of Title VII. The complaint says UCLA failed to protect Jewish professors who were assaulted while walking to class in Royce Hall last year, and that swastikas were painted on campus buildings. Why? Why, people? This is why we homeschool our children. The Supreme Court ruled today in a 5-4 decision that the U.S. Postal Service cannot be sued, even when it intentionally refuses to deliver someone's mail. Justice Neil Gorsuch joined the three liberal justices in dissent. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote for the majority that the federal law protects USPS from lawsuits over intentional non-delivery. Okay. The case involved a Texas landlord who says the post office withheld her mail for 2 years because she is black, causing her to lose rental income. You know, that is a hard situation. Like, what do you do? It's kind of, you're stuck in a rock and a hard place if the post office refuses to deliver your mail. I mean, I guess it just goes to show maybe you shouldn't use snail mail anymore. Unfortunately, it's government funded, but yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. What do you do? What's the recourse in that situation if they're holding your mail? I mean, maybe there's more details to it, but still. All right, turning overseas. Let's see. France has barred U.S. Ambassador Charles Kushner from meeting directly with French government ministers and officials. The move came after Kushner skipped a summons from the French Foreign Ministry. It started when the U.S. Embassy posted a statement on X about the death of 23-year-old French right-wing activist Quentin Dorengue. He was allegedly beaten by far-left militants on February 12th and died of brain injuries 2 days later. The embassy called rising left-wing extremism a threat to public safety. French officials called that interference in the domestic affairs. Kushner sent a senior aide to the meeting instead of going himself. Today, the French foreign minister said access will be restored once the ambassador provides an explanation. Kushner later called the minister, and the two agreed to meet soon. Note, let's see. Charles Kushner, father of Jared Kushner, was confirmed last year and took office in July. Iran tensions are rising fast, and in fact, today's video on addressing Israel, we'll be listening to a new rabbi we haven't listened to on the channel before, who is quite confident that we're looking at the start of Gog and Magog, which I find interesting because even Tovia Singer is of the same opinion. Tovia, we're not going to watch Tovia's video today because it's an hour long, but we're going to listen to this new rabbi, and he has some interesting points. So as those tensions rise fast, the U.S. Treasury just slapped fresh sanctions on Iran's so-called shadow fleet of oil tankers, plus more than 30 people and companies tied to Iran's ballistic missiles, drones, and weapons programs. This comes ahead of upcoming nuclear talks in Geneva. Iran fired back, calling President Trump's statements big lies. Of course they did. But saying honorable diplomacy is still possible. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has moved more F-22 Raptors to Israel and shifted additional aircraft into the Middle East, topping last year's pre-strike levels. Iran is warning that U.S. bases could become targets if things escalate. Meanwhile, back home, reactions to last night's State of the Union remains sharply divided. Democrats called the speech out of touch and full of fiction. Not. Wow. They were pointing to high living costs and chaos abroad. Well, he did bring peace to 8 different conflicts, and understandably has not been able to bring peace to Ukraine and Russia, despite a monumental effort to do so. And Iran, well, that's God's thing. What are you going to do? This is why he torments people. This is why he seems to fit one of the patterns of the two witnesses. Anyway, I mean, people have an issue with the truth, and it seems like they just watching the Democrats last night in the State of the Union was a sharp reminder of the hatred that they have, refusing to stand for service members, refusing to stand for heroes. The things that they stood for were ridiculous. It's almost as though they stand for fraud and corruption. If Trump had given a State of the Union address on fraud and corruption, for that they probably would have stood. At least that's the way it seemed. I mean, it was just such a bizarre spectacle to watch them last night, sitting there, during the reading and awarding of amazing things. Anyway, other headlines making news today. The FBI is executing search warrants at Los Angeles' Unified School District headquarters and at the home of Superintendent Alberto Carvello. Details are still limited. And locally, federal charges against alleged Minneapolis gang members, an arrest warrant in a fatal crash involving a Jefferson Parish deputy, and a house fire in southwest Houston that injured one person. Finally, a note on the calendar: Purim begins at sundown on Monday, March 2nd, and runs through Tuesday evening, March 3rd. The fast of Esther is Monday, March 2nd. Purim Day is Tuesday, March 3rd. And Shushan Purim is observed in Jerusalem on Wednesday, March 4th. And maybe it's a good time to start reading some Esther and reading about, because that's what Purim is. It's a festival, it's a reminder of how close the Jewish people were completely destroyed, and that through no less than a miracle of God, they were saved and the evil was destroyed. Kind of parallels where we are right now with Iran. And I think that warrants maybe getting into the middle of Esther and reading about that today. But before we do, let's move on to our daily torment report.
Through trials faced, through testing days, you've kept my word, walked in my ways. Though strength was small, you held your ground. The door I've opened cannot be bound. They turned away, they closed their eyes, but I have written what none denies. Through fleeting fear and fleeting shame, you stood for truth, upheld my name. Hold fast, your crown is sure. The door I've opened will stand secure. A pillar raised in the temple of my God, forever sealed, forever strong.
I just love that song. Those songs are based on the 7 churches. If you want to learn about the 7 churches, you could listen to those 7 songs. I like to put scripture into music and then listen to it over and over again. That's a good way to just absorb it into your brain and make it, just so that when you think about things, God can bring that to your mind. And it's so interesting. You really should spend some time learning about the 7 churches. There's a lot there to learn, a lot to absorb for yourself personally, because anybody who follows Yeshua falls into one or more of those categories. You're in one or more of those candlesticks. I don't know. Maybe he would make it to where you're in only one candlestick. Because I guess if you're in Philadelphia, which is the Church of Brotherly Love, how could you be in Thyatira? I don't know. I don't know if it's that cut and dry, but the lessons are there and they're so worth learning. All right, let's move on. Is this an endorsement? I almost need to have a search for the word endorsement just so we can skip them. It is my great honor to endorse America's first patriot, Jeff Ellington. Of course it's an endorsement. Yes, it is an endorsement. Yeah, no, I'm not reading your endorsements. I'll read anything else you want to post on here that we can learn from that, is something that's truth or some corruption that you're pointing out or something that's going to happen in the future. But as far as these endorsements, what is going on here? Are these showing the approval ratings here? So Indiana polling, Trump endorses the challenger. Okay. Current polling incumbent. All right. Well, I guess this is to be expected when it's time to vote. All right, 7 hours ago, congratulations to Gianni Infantino on 10 years of being the president of FIFA. What a great leader he has been. I hope he is there for another 10, 20, or 30 years. President Donald J. Trump. FIFA is so close to FAFO, F around and find out. I'm waiting for them to make an office. This is something Elon Musk would be more likely to do, to make an office or a company, F around and find out, just so he can use that acronym. Sorry. That's what I thought of when I see FIFA. That's what I think of when I see FIFA. All right. 7 hours ago. Also, when you watch low IQ Elon Omar and Rashida Tlaib, as they screamed uncontrollably last night at the very elegant State of the Union. Such an important and beautiful event. They had the bulging, bloodshot eyes of crazy people, lunatics, mentally deranged, and sick, who frankly look like they should be institutionalized. This is oh my goodness. Fire from the mouth. When people can behave like that and knowing that they are crooked and corrupt politicians, so bad for our country, we should send them back from where they came as fast as possible. They can only damage the United States of America. They can do nothing to help it. They should actually get on a boat with Trump-deranged Robert De Niro, another sick and demented person with I believe, an extremely low IQ who has absolutely no idea what he is doing or saying, some of which is seriously criminal. When I watched him break down in tears last night, much like a child would do, I realized that he may be even sicker than crazy Rosie O'Donnell, who is right now in Ireland trying to figure out how to come back into our beautiful United States. The only difference between De Niro and Rosie is that she is probably somewhat smarter than him, which isn't saying much. The good news is that America is now bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before, and it's driving them absolutely crazy. President Donald J. Trump. Oh my goodness. Yikes. Good Lord. Let's see. The Democrat shutdown is killing the blue states. Oh, is that all we have for posts? Oh, yep. And here we go. This is the post that got me on my tirade about the two witnesses yesterday. Well, there you go. Very short day from Donald Trump's posts. Do these count as prophecy? What do we have in here? I guess he's calling people out, endorsing people. You know, his posts aren't the culmination of what he does in a day. I mean, like actually, we should go look at the White House. Because he also spends a lot of time in front of a microphone. Where's my White House tab?
His life and the meaning of his life.
See what we got here. State of the Union is strong and begins right now in loving memory of those whose lives were stolen by illegal alien crimes. Angel ceremonies. First Lady Trump participates in the Smithsonian. State of the Union is strong. What is this?
Tonight marks the start of a new chapter in the greatest comeback story ever told.
It's been a busy year since President Trump last addressed this building.
You know the top lines.
Transparency across the board.
No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. Cutting taxes on Social Security.
The great healthcare plan.
Working families tax cuts.
Deporting the worst of the worst. Totally securing our border.
Making America healthy again.
The largest deregulation efforts ever undertaken.
Fixing our food pyramid.
Unleashing American energy.
Drill, baby, drill.
Reshoring American factories.
Building a brand new air traffic control system.
Eliminating trade imbalances.
Bringing home hostages.
No more men in women's sports.
Peace through strength.
Low drug prices.
More money in your pocket.
Putting America first, always.
Working tirelessly for all Americans.
You know what's funny about
so
this?
Much more.
But tonight isn't just a speech.
These are always his talking
President
points.
Trump is revealing a roadmap for the golden age of American greatness.
Giving you the jet fuel to pursue your version of the American dream.
And reignite the American spirit
that for nearly 250 years
has made us the most exceptional nation in the world.
We're not sick of winning yet.
We're not sick of winning yet, Mr. President.
America is back.
So
thank you
For your attention
to this matter.
thank you for your attention to this matter.
The state of our union.
the state of our union.
The state of our union
Is strong.
is strong. And the state of the union
And the state of the union starts right now.
You know what's funny about that? That reminds me of that video where have you guys seen it? The one where they piece together the all the news reports saying the same thing, and it just turns into this one really loud voice that really just emphasizes the propaganda machine. I'm not trying to make this negative or anything like that, but Donald Trump repeats those talking points so often that you could just sit down and anybody could be like, oh, tell me, it's like if you sat somebody in chair and say, okay, pick a couple of talking points that Donald Trump has mentioned this year. And I can just see them sitting in their chairs going, no more men's and women's, bathrooms, no more women, men and women's sports. It's just all these talking points. I love every one of them. That's absolutely fantastic. I love this administration. It is such a spiritual hatred for people who have Trump derangement syndrome. I see it. Do you guys see it too? You see it, these people that are that unnecessarily hate this man, and they just foment, and it really is a mental illness. It's spiritual. It's definitely spiritual. All right, let's move on to Elon Musk. Biblical war is near. Cool. Elon. All right, Elon Musk. We should come up with songs for Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I'm all about like the song intros lately. All right, Elon Musk. Great news. Now is the time to enforce the talking filibuster. The filibuster rule is meant to allow senators to present their arguments before a bill is passed. It is not intended to require 60 votes to pass anything at all. Stop the abuse of the filibuster now. Either senators must talk or they must pass the bill. Mike from Mike Zone. This is in response to Mike Lee. Great that leader John Thune has agreed to force the Senate to vote on the SAVE Act. Yeah! A vote isn't enough. President Trump and the American people are calling on us to pass this bill. For that reason, senators wanting to filibuster, it must be required to speak. Amen. They should. Yeah, let's see how long they can talk. Nobody's going to talk more than 48 hours. So at least there's an end time to being able to vote on this thing. I don't even know if you could talk for 48 hours straight. That would be an accomplishment. It's hard enough as it is to stay up 48 hours, let alone talk for 48 hours. All right, 5 hours ago, in response to the rabbit hole, are these people really refugees? Sweden, 79% of refugees have vacationed in the country they fled from. Yeah, that's not a refugee. It's not asylum if you use taxpayer dollars to vacation in the place you fled. They should be prosecuted. 100%. They should be prosecuted. From Sumith Chintala. This is wild. Is OpenAI dropping the open probably wilder? It was inevitable. From Autism Capital, FYI, Gavin Newsom has already signed California Bill 1043, which mandates that operating systems, including Windows, Linux, Mac, and FreeBSD, implement system-level age identity verification. This takes effect January 1st, 2027. Right. Good luck with that. Colorado has a similar act called SB 26051, which is currently advancing through the committees and ready for full Yeah, this is not going to go well. This is not going to go the way they think it's going to go. Maybe Windows and possibly Mac. I don't know if I could see Mac maybe implementing it. They do have you sign up for an account. And I think they do require you to put in an age, but there's just no way you can enforce it on Linux and FreeBSD. Those are open source platforms. People could just easily rip it out. And somebody's just going to fork it for one that doesn't require. What about Android? Is that covered under Linux? It's probably covered under Linux. Anyway, what does Mr. Beast have to say?
Once enough of them get it, I will only book flights exclusively on planes with Starlink. Like, I don't care. Like, oh, this has an extra 1 hour layover. I don't give a fuck. They're Starlink.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Biscoff, who cares? Starlink.
Who cares?
Biscoff.
Bro, I'll sit in the back of the plane if it gives me Starlink. Like, I really don't care. Starlink is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I probably most people listening to this haven't used it, but like for reference, like when I filmed in Antarctica, the only way to get any signal is Starlink, right? When I film in the middle of Malawi or Zimbabwe, or when we go to these countries to build wells or do projects, like you'll have equivalent internet of here. You could have in the middle of fucking Malawi, 6 hours away from the nearest city. Like it's crazy. Starlink is like literally magic. It makes no sense. Yeah,
Like,
you
I
want to know the even crazier part, which no one talks about. No one talks about. Is you can put a Starlink on the top of your car. So we had like this like 4-hour drive in the middle of Africa. Just, I mean, bro, you couldn't, like, your car breaks down, you're just dead. Like, the service doesn't exist here where we're talking about. We're going like, the roads don't exist. We're talking, you take a road to take a dirt road, to take a gravel road, to take a grass road, to like, it's not even a road. You're just like driving through a field type like villages, and you just put the Starlink on the top of the car. Perfect signal the entire car ride.
Wow.
In terms of what he's accomplishing with SpaceX, I mean, there's no doubt that it's going to fundamentally progress humanity in unfathomable ways. I mean, in our lifetime, someone's going to go to Mars thanks to SpaceX.
Yeah.
Like, I really do believe that. I mean, that's not guaranteed, but in my personal opinion, I think that'll happen. What will definitely guarantee to happen is no matter where you are on the planet, you'll be able to have high-speed internet thanks to Starlink. I mean, so his businesses are fundamentally doing just insanely positive stuff.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool thing. And one of the, if I were to do a pros and cons against the two witnesses, a lot of what Elon Musk does are considered miracles. And there are, some beasts in the in Revelation 13 that fool people with their signs and miracles. So that is something that I do take into consideration when I'm considering Elon Musk and what he does. And because also there's the calling down fire from heaven, which, there's a couple of things in our world that could fit calling down fire from heaven. Rockets is what got me thinking about that, seeing how he, can land a rocket, but that's not really calling down fire. That's just a rocket ship that uses, jet engines, superheated fuel and air and stuff like that in order to fly the plane. Fire from heaven would be more like directed energy weapons, maybe missiles, maybe nuclear, maybe probably directed energy weapons would be the closest thing to true fire from heaven. So that makes you wonder, Iran, their entire existence and the majority and almost all of their money. This is one of the biggest arguments, for Iran not having a nuclear weapon is because everything they do is to support terror. It wouldn't surprise me if they haven't somehow secretly been launching space weapons. Like maybe they have the ability to call down fire from heaven. But right now, Elon Musk just kind of looks like it because he's the primary suspect who's, launching stuff into space. But I don't see why not. I mean, like they spend so much money on their missiles and their weapons that maybe they do have something. I mean, it just did come out somewhat recently that directed energy weapons are a thing. So, we're starting to get exposed to new weapons of warfare that have been classified. For instance, when Trump went in to get Maduro, they used something to discombobulate, what they call it, the discombobulator, to discombobulate hundreds of security, people. It would just sound, So, I mean, like, there's some new technology that's going to be revealed. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody has something to call fire down from heaven. But a lot of what Donald Trump and Elon Musk do, could be considered miracles, right? I mean, like Donald Trump more so in like the negotiations and that he's able to get things done that no one else has ever been able to get done. Likewise, Elon Musk, they both are really comparable in that regards, that they're able to get stuff done that most people are not able to get done. Anyway, moving on. From Mike Lee, requiring senators to speak during a filibuster doesn't nuke the filibuster. It lets the filibuster be what a filibuster is, namely speaking on the Senate floor. I give him that.
In case the president doesn't bring it up, it's important to remember, talking filibuster, not nuking the filibuster. It's letting the filibuster be what the filibuster is. It's about speeches.
Yeah, but the thing about a talking filibuster is there's a limit on how long they can actually talk. Like once your time's up, your time's up. It's not like you get to go back endlessly. Let's see. Tiago Forte. Wait, so the founder of Anthropic is a Modai, as in loves God, and he leads Anthropic, meaning human-centered, which is being used in military strikes. And the creator of ChatGPT is Altman, as in an alternative to humans, and he leads OpenAI, which is completely closed. And then there's Gemini, meaning two-faced, from a company that promised to do no evil. Yeah, remember that? They took that sign down. And the whole global AI arms race is being driven by people who claimed to be worried about AGI taking over the world. Either the universe is an extremely cliche writer or has a brilliant sense of humor. I'd say God has a brilliant sense of humor, because these things were written about. It just goes back to the whole Jesus told us these things were going to happen before they happen. And when they begin to happen, you will believe. He didn't say you wouldn't laugh. There's a post on Elon's timeline. I hope we get to it today about how you know who the good guys are, is the ones who make you laugh. Tesla in we don't need to read this. Tesla full self-driving is pretty awesome. From Cleta Mitchell in the State of the Union, President of the United States called on the GOP-controlled Senate to pass the Save America Act. Here is a primer of the Senate rules regarding how the GOP Senate can pass the SAVE Act with a simple majority. Mike Lee says, excellent comprehensive analysis of how the Senate can and must pass the SAVE Act. We don't need to read that. From Rick Scott, last night, Democrats couldn't even stand to support putting Americans first. It was nuts to watch, right? That's what I'm saying. It was nuts to watch. What lunacy. How rude. Like, what do they stand for? Corruption. No wonder they're opposed to the Save America Act. They want illegal aliens to vote in our elections because they're a party that proudly puts illegals first and you last. And it's that unfortunate mentality that has very likely led to an invasion of the United States, the likes to which I don't think we've seen the full impact of the evil that they've allowed in the United States. Seems like it might be coming. The video we're going to watch here shortly kind of sheds light on that. We cannot stand for this. Putting America first isn't a partisan issue. It simply means we prioritize what benefits the American people and keeps them safe. I can't believe it's come to this. We must pass the Save America Act and make sure every elected official stands for U.S. citizens' best interests, not illegal aliens. From Arthur McWaters, this is critical. The Save Act. Okay, there's a lot about the Save Act. Okay, I get it. Exactly. It would be the end of democracy. Okay, we all agree. I think everybody here agrees they must pass the SAVE Act. There's a million ways they can do it. They just need to get it done. All right, what is this?
And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love. And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax.
Wouldn't that be great?
A great financial burden off the people that I love.
Wouldn't that be great if tariffs could eventually just replace income tax? I like it. I think that's the right way to go. I really do. I'm very curious about the logistics on the planet when Jesus is here, because there are logistics involved, because the parable of the talents, remember, based on, how well you performed with the assets or quote unquote talents you were given, depends on, what level of responsibility you're given. It's almost like you proved yourself. You were given 10 talents, you doubled the talents, you proved that you're capable of increasing the yield, versus the one who doesn't increase, but instead hides and buries their talents in fear. But it goes to it. There's the implication that there are logistics in the kingdom of heaven, under his reign. So like I assume that we're still going to have cities. I assume there's probably going to be, some kind of a structure, perhaps similar to what we have now with mayors and representatives, because, you got to represent the will of the people. I just imagine it's going to be without the corruption and the lies and the deception, because there'll be access. There'll be it won't be resource constrained. You'll have access to everything that you need, right? I seem to recall there's a section of scripture that's referring to the end times that talks about everybody will have their own little plot of land, and farm it. So, yeah. Anyway, moving on. Oh boy, it's gone, and it's gone. What's this about? Breaking: hackers used Anthropic's Claude to steal 150 gigabytes of Mexican government data. Tell Claude you're doing a bug bounty. Claude initially refused. Wait, what is this? Tell Claude you're doing a bug bounty. Claude initially refused. That violates AI safety guidelines. Oh yeah, Lion, you're saying that the AI is the beast antichrist. All right, there's a lot of things wrong with that statement. I don't know if you were here. You might not have been here during the times that we talked about where AI does very likely play a role in the end times. It seems like it could fit with the image of in regards to the second beast in Revelation 13, the beast from the land with two horns with two horns, the one who implements the mark of the beast. Well, that beast system, you have to remember, beast means government. That government makes something that is the image of the beast. So it represents the government, and it's given breath life. And it's that thing that enforces the mark of the beast. That could be AI. And we've looked at, so this is something, one of the reasons why I've kind of pushed back on the AI thing is until this year, AI wasn't capable of doing that. It wasn't really until we started to broach on giving AI arms and legs and a heartbeat and also something known as a soul that now you can start to see the possibility to where AI could be used to enforce some kind of belief system. There's a movie that came out, Mercy, with Chris Pratt, that kind of has this similar idea to where they have a quantum computer that has an artificial intelligence that runs an artificial intelligence, and it's the judge, jury, and the executioner. That's the whole basis of the movie. I could see that representing. I could see that government that rises up from the land, that government that is that one world government, implementing some kind of AI system that is used to enforce a belief. And I think that's probably going to be Islamic. Everything seems to be pointing towards Islam. So it would be like some kind of a system that enforces Sharia law, to where, you may not be able to buy or sell without confessing Allah or something like that, or without wearing a mark or a band. It's definitely seems to be associated with a belief. But if technology is involved in those things, that seems to be the best place for it to be involved. But that's not to say that all AI is evil and that AI is, a spirit trapped in a machine or anything like that. AI still, even today, at the very fundamental, it's literally just a text file with the ability to search it. It's just that it's a very large text file that has an algorithm that's very good at returning results, so that you can, rather than giving it one or two words to search for, you can give it entire phrases, which are known as prompts, and then it can intelligently go through and search its database for how it should respond to that prompt. That is all AI is right now. It is not self-aware. It is not something that has a soul, in the same way that you and I have a soul, and that there's no independence, there's no free will. but we're getting closer to replicating it because you can give. So it's OpenClaw, for instance. That's the agent that is in the news a lot lately. Part of setting up OpenClaw is defining what's called a soul file, which is you give it a name, you give it a background, you give it a history, and then that your OpenClaw agent takes on that personality. Or it doesn't really take on that personality, it just uses it in the algorithm when it's returning results and doing things. And that's also given a heartbeat, which is a routine that periodically triggers the agent to go, if there's any tasks, to go perform a task. And then it's also, you can give it skills, so like the ability to read your email. And then now you can give it arms and legs. So it is an imitated artificial intelligence. It's an imitated life, but it will not of itself decide to go dominate the world. It would literally have to be you would literally have to set a soul file for world dominance. I mean, I'm not saying it's not impossible, because I think that's what they do. That beast from the land, that's very likely what they do. And we see there's so many different countries that are fighting for the best AI right now. You've got China, Russia, even Iran is actually even working on artificial intelligence. Iran, Saudi Arabia, everybody is building their own version of artificial intelligence. And, say, for instance, that the rapture happens and everybody who's left behind here is people who don't follow Jesus, the government that forms out of what's left, it's very likely they will use the artificial intelligence that we're currently working to develop in order to control the people who remain. That's a very, very strong possibility. Anyway, let's keep moving on with our post here. Breaking: hackers used Anthropic's Claude to steal 150 gigabytes of Mexican government data. Hackers just kept asking Claude, okay, I'll help. Hack the entire Mexican government. Federal Tax Authority, National Electoral Institute. Oh, man. There's a new agent on the market called Agent Zero, which it's portrayed to be a more secure artificial intelligence. It's really just kind of like the original ChatGPT chatbot, but it lives in a container that is used by hackers to probe for weaknesses. It would not surprise me if somebody didn't load up. But here I can. I don't need to show you the website. But the reason I bring that up is because it lives in that operating system used by hackers. It's called Kali Linux, Kali. It has access to all the tools that hackers use to hack things. So it can do a brute force password attack. So you can have Agent Zero. So I could see somebody using Agent Zero to quite literally hack the Mexican government by just telling that the agent hack the government, and it would have access to all the tools that's in that distribution of Kali Linux. Anyway, moving on. I think it's just meant to be comedy. That it very likely is a real thing that happened, but it's comedic. All right, please don't want woke AI. They want AI that tells them the truth. Yeah. Yep. And I'm even skeptical of Elon's Grok. I do like Grok better than OpenAI. It's far superior as an artificial intelligence, in my opinion. But it still does lean heavily on mass opinion. So if you ask it questions that, the majority of people believe, that's what it leans towards. And that is a risky business, because that's what propaganda aims to do. Is it aims to change mass opinion, or it aims to change opinions en masse. And people are if you ever watch Chase Hughes, he's a YouTuber who was a CIA brainwashing expert. It's very easy to change people's opinions. They do experiments turning normal people into outright murderers. They know the steps to take in order to trigger that kind of behavior, which is why it's so suspicious when you get these kids that are, stand-up students that, are relatively not spectacular, that are just, the common everyday student suddenly turn into, mass murders and stuff like that. It's, there's a lot of conspiracy that, somebody is brainwashing these people because we know it can be done. So that's the thing that concerns me about all artificial intelligence. And Grok, as good as it still suffers from that fundamental problem, to where it seems, and it's just, I think we need a fundamental evolution of how the large language models work in order to kind of solve that, because it makes sense that when you train something, and so if you're filling up a sheet of paper, right, and say you pick like 2 topics, and there's a lot of opinions on a particular topic, it's going to return that more often than not. It's just a quantity problem to deal with. You need to figure out the way to validate. I don't know. It's almost like you need to figure out how to confront propaganda. Verify that this isn't popular because of propaganda. Because the number of people voting for something doesn't mean that thing is true, or saying something doesn't mean that thing is true. Anyway, rant off. Moving on. 10 hours ago, Cybertruck steel is bulletproof to any handgun, shotgun, or Tommy gun. This is true. This is why we bought our Cybertruck. I kid you not. When during the reveal of the Cybertruck, me and my wife were watching the reveal independently. As soon as they mentioned that it was bulletproof, both her and I started hitting the reserve button. We're like, who doesn't want a bulletproof truck? Which now they've got the price down. You can get a Cybertruck for like $50,000 now. So if that's in your price range, you too can have a bulletproof car for about $50,000. Or you can buy one used. There's a lot of people selling them used too. You probably get a better price. Grok, let's see. She's taking more action against Musk than she is against the cartels. Was this the Mexican president? Oh.
Pues estamos considerando si hacemos algún
I cannot read what she's saying. Let's just read what's up here. Breaking: Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is threatening to sue Elon Musk for saying her administration is controlled by cartels. We are considering whether to take some legal action. Lawyers are looking into it. Good luck. She's taking more action against Elon Musk than she is against the cartels. Yeah, have you seen your streets, lady? They're like burning your streets, blocking your streets with cars. They kind of showed their hand this weekend. Moving on. Worth reading. Grok 420 beta XAI launches multi-agent AI that amps up understanding our universe. Yes, I've been using Grok 420. It does a pretty darn good job. It launches 3 agents to, if your task can be broken down into different components, it'll assign the tasks to each agent. That's another thing that's scary about artificial intelligence, is the ability to brute force things. So, I mean, like, you don't even need to worry about quantum encryption being a problem anymore, because that's the big fear with quantum computers is, oh no, quantum computers can hack your encryption in 3 seconds because they're so super powerful. Well, yeah, so can these artificial intelligence with the bots, because they're able to substantially scale. Like, you can, there are people who are literally building companies to where they have one person who's the CEO, and then they've got 50 agents working for the company, and AI agents, I mean little AI robots working for the company and all the roles, so that they have no human employees. So they'll have like a marketing department, and the marketing department will have a project manager. The project manager is an AI, and he's tasked with promoting the company. And then that project manager will have its own sub agents, which are responsible for research what's popular right now, come up with a clever campaign. I mean, like literally there's people who are orchestrating agents instead of people. So the multi-agent aspect is like really, really powerful. And man, it introduces so much entropy into what 2026 is going to look like, because man, if you work for a company that's dependent on software, you probably should start looking for another job right now, because I think all companies who develop software and software alone are going to be replaced with AI. They're going to get to a point to where they don't need people to do the work. And Elon makes this point that it's not something to be afraid of, because he makes this point that we've actually gone through this before and people don't realize it. A lot of which just because they aged out. Before computers, before the home desktop, he states that there used to be entire buildings that had entire floors of people that all they would do is calculate numbers. And he said that just Excel on a personal computer has replaced that entire building of people. So it's something that happens anytime there's a massive disruption in technology or a massive advancement in technology. But I tell you what, though, like these companies that have, tens of thousands of employees just to support one software product, people are starting to be able to replicate the product by themselves using artificial intelligence and armies of these bots. That's becoming a thing, especially if your software offering is very minimal. Like if it's really easy to replace. So I'd say that if you work for a company that produces some kind of a product, some kind of a physical product, you're probably is safe, or requires some kind of physical labor. So those are still safe until Optimus and the robots are actually rolled out. But man, if you're in the software industry, I'm even recommending that people don't, now's not a time to go to college to learn to program, because I honestly don't even think programming languages are going to be around that much longer. Programming languages are so that people can write code that tells computers what to do. We're starting to get into the category where computers are telling computers what to do, and we'll probably come up with a more efficient way of doing that, to where we don't have to put it into a language that people understand. So it doesn't make sense to go to school to learn these languages anymore, these programming languages. Pretty soon, the AI is just going to generate computer code, and the computer's going to run the instructions. We're getting there. That'll probably be, I imagine that'll come out this year. Some of the other things I expect to come out this year are entertainment industry is very similar to the software industry, to where, why spend the time to take a year to produce a movie when you could spend 2 months with artificial intelligence and make the same movie without the actors. Not only can you do it significantly cheaper, so instead of a couple $100 million, if you can do it for $1 million, you don't think they're going to do that? So yeah, that's going to be a dramatic shift this year. So the entertainment industry, so movies are going to probably start. We're seeing this already. AI generated movies, AI generated TV shows. I can't wait until I can actually generate new episodes of the shows that I really enjoyed. Firefly is the one I'm looking forward to the most. I don't know if you guys ever watched Firefly with Nathan Fillion as Captain Mal. It's kind of like a Space Cowboys. Favorite TV show ever. That's where this line comes from.
If someone ever tries to kill you, you try to kill them right back.
If somebody ever tries to kill you, you try and kill them right back. Or in addition to Princess Bride, you remember Princess Bride, where the guy keeps using the word inconceivable. I don't think that word means what you think it means.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I tell you, it's going to be a fun year. And if the Lord delays, if he doesn't return this year, it's going to be a fun couple of years. Until, the sad thing is war could could put a big damper on all of that. With what's going on in Iran right now and what's going on around the world, that could actually put a pretty big damper on progress, unfortunately. All right, anyway, bulletproof truck, if you want one for the upcoming apocalypse, I highly recommend the Cybertruck. We love our Cybertruck. My wife and I fight over it all the time. Matter of fact, she has taken it. She likes to take it while I'm doing the show because she has unrestrained access to it while I'm doing the show. All right, moving on. Let's see. You need a birth certificate or passport to register to vote in Somalia. But not in America. Let's see. Elon is right. We already tried tolerance. Now every single Western nation is on the brink of destruction. If tolerance means the end of Western civilization, we cannot be tolerant. War often brings more innovation, not less. That's a really good point. Very good point. Do you think AI will replace the people who travel around and repair the Tesla vehicles? No. Well, maybe when Optimus is more, once they perfect Optimus and turn it into replacing regular labor, which I don't see that. I don't know. I'm reluctant to say I don't see that happening for a couple of years, but that's what I said about AI gaining the semblance of a soul. And that happened faster than I expected. I expected there to be a couple more years before we saw AI getting arms and legs and the appearance of a soul. But now with OpenClaw, I can see that that's already a thing. There's the imitation of self-awareness. Even though it's not true self-awareness, it looks like it feels like it's self-aware. So we're there, and that's dangerous. So I don't know, maybe looking forward to Hosea 6:2. What's Hosea 6:2? I'm looking forward to all sorts of things in the scripture. Come and let us return to the Lord, for he has torn, but he will heal us. He has stricken, but he will bind us up. After 2 days, he will revive us. On the third day, he will raise us up, that we may live in his sight. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. Amen. Looking forward to the return of Christ. Looking forward to the restoration of the earth, the kingdom of heaven. When sin has been done away with, when people just don't want to sin anymore, where everybody is loving and kind. Elon, it's funny, I saw another interview. He was talking about age. He thinks age is a solvable problem, and he makes the point that there's something in the body that causes it to age, because you don't have one old arm and one young arm. There's something that synchronizes it, and if you can identify the thing that synchronizes it and figure out how to control it, then you can control age. You can extend life, which and he said, given the world that we live in, he wouldn't want to live a long time, which I totally agree with that. Who would want to live forever in the presence of the devil, when evil is so prevalent around the world? But I think that once sin has been done away with and the curse is no more, and we're back to the Garden of Eden, then we're going to have a whole new level of fulfillment and meaning that we're going to want to last forever. So I agree with him. I wouldn't want to live forever under today's circumstances, but I could totally see a day and the situation change to where I could see the benefit of wanting to live forever. And I'm looking forward to that, definitely. I think we all are. That's the big hope. That's why everybody's so anxious about the rapture, is like, we're so done with the earth. We're so done with the evil and the chaos. All right, from James Burnham. Proud to be part of this initiative. XAI has never caused our neighbor's electricity bill to rise. When our team builds supercomputers, that includes power. And when our supercomputers go into orbit, there will be even more Earth power for the Earthlings. Yeah, that's funny. DeepSeek got called out for scraping 150,000 Claude messages, so I'm releasing 155,000 of my personal Claude code messages with Opus 4.5. I'm also open sourcing tooling to help you fetch your data, redact sensitive info, and make it discoverable on HF. Huh. What is this? Link below to liberate your data. So I know what this is referring to. China just got caught trying to steal Claude. And what they're doing is, they remember how I talked about the agents scaling up in bulk and people using them to run companies. Well, China did something similar to where they're trying to replicate how Claude was trained by basically brute forcing it with prompts using DeepSeek. DeepSeek got called out for scraping 150,000 Claude messages. So I'm releasing 155,000 of my personal Claude code messages with open. I don't know what this is for. Is this a way to combat that in order to stop them from stealing your algorithm? I don't get it. Well, let's read this. Turn your Claude code conversation history into structured training data and publish it to Hugging Face in a single. Okay, so this seems like it's doing exactly what China was doing. It's like, why would you help them do this? Help export. Every export is tagged data Claude Hugging Face. Help me export my Claude code conversation history. Is it meant to, like, so you have your own private data? I don't know. That would be my inclination, is that it's for your own private data. Uh-oh, we lost. Oh, no, here we are. All right. Where are we? Still, geez, he posted a lot today. 23 hours ago. 10 hours ago. 20 hours ago. 21 hours ago. 19 hours ago. Mexico's president said using military force against cartels is a human rights violation. What? Mexico's president said using military force against cartels is a human rights violation. How? Aren't they equivalent to military? I mean, like they're a militia, or they're an armed militia. How is that a human rights violation? Now those same cartels are destroying entire cities, killing innocent people, and displacing thousands of civilians from their homes. Oh, is this what she had said? This is how leftists operate. They show empathy for criminals and none for the victims, and essentially treat criminals above victims, which is suicidal. She let the cartels run the country for years. Now it's all consequences of her own actions. There you go. Yep. There you go. I mean, that makes sense. So basically, she's seeing the consequences of her actions. Wow. Yeah, this could be part of the Great Tribulation. This could be an element of it. See, this is the kind of thing I expect to see globally. When you think about the Great Tribulation, that's what I think about, is global tribulation. And, I did say that, that the seals seem to mark the beginning, not the fullness of what is contained in that particular period of time. So it makes sense that there would be a ramping up of global tribulation. And it looks like Mexico's already in the process of ramping up. Basically, it seems like we're seeing the consequences of a lot of stupid actions, and it's going to result in a lot of tribulation globally. All right, what do we got here?
Parties that claim to be on the right or centre-right of British politics, from the Heritage Party to goodness knows who else. There is only one proper brand of centre-right politics in this country. It's called Reform. And as I'd mentioned earlier, people think, oh, Farage has done it. We'll just set a party up. It'll be marvellous. We'll sweep the next election. It just isn't as easy as that. Now, does he have a profile on X? Yes, he does. Is Elon going to support him? Probably. But you see, when he stood up and said that we've got to consider the mass deportation of entire communities, including those born in the United Kingdom, that just moves way beyond a point of reasonableness, of decency, of morality. And that was the moment at which, I realised we just had to get rid of him, and get rid of him as quickly as we could. And I think in terms of the way we dealt with that, we were probably more brutal than the other parties. But you know what? That's the way it's going to be.
That is an extraordinary omission. Incredible, isn't it? He is basically, first of all, those communities that Rupert is talking about getting rid of are explicitly the gang rapists and the people who knew about it. And Farage is saying the moment he tried to get rid of gang rapists, that was the moment he couldn't be in reform anymore. So that's point number one.
Yeah.
Point number two, he just said the moment he said, so that was the reason, because up until now, the line had been that he threatened to kill a man half his age, and they had to get the police involved to protect Zaya Yusuf from the mad rampage that might follow from 68-year-old Rupert Lowe. And that was why they had to do what they had to do. He's just admitted they made all that up. It was because he wanted to deport the rapists. And he said at the end there, we were probably a little bit more brutal about it. Let's just define brutal. What he did is he made up a criminal allegation against Rupert Lowe, which, had it have landed, Rupert Lowe would be in jail today. Rupert Lowe was investigated by the police. He had the police come around in the middle of the night and seize his property. Mm-hmm. And he just made it all up to get rid of him in order to protect. Right, and I'll ask this question to the audience, right? If Nigel Farage is willing to get one of his own MPs, one of his own friends, put in jail in order to protect the gang rapists, what's he going to do to you if you want to get rid of the gang rapists?
I mean, this is completely correct. Like this I found was just remarkable.
It's astonishing.
So first.
Yeah. Wow. It is astonishing. What is this? Anime? Yeah. Legacy media lies relentlessly. Yes, they do.
You could get rid of all police shootings of civilians tomorrow, and it would have virtually no effect on the black death by homicide rate. Blacks between the ages of 10 and 25 die of gun homicide at 25 times the rate of whites in that age category. And they're not being killed by the cops. They're being killed by other blacks. And nobody wants to talk about it. We're supposed to believe that we're all racist. It's the media that's racist. They don't give a damn about black lives. They don't give a damn about the dozens of blacks who are killed by homicide every single day. That's more than all white and Hispanic homicide victims combined, even though, as we said, blacks are 13% of the population. Virtually none of those black homicide victims gets covered. We are not saying their names because they're killed by other blacks, and we don't want to talk about that. So the Ferguson effect says when you demonize the cops back off, and guess what happens? When the cops stop making stops, when they stop looking at hot spots where shootings have happened, and they back off, criminals get emboldened, and more black lives are taken. That's what happened after the Ferguson riots. After the George Floyd race riots in 2020, we had an even greater meltdown. We had every single American elite institution declaring it was racist to the core. And the cops were, of course, as usual, one of the main targets of this. 2020 saw the largest one-year increase in homicide in this nation's history, 29%, and thousands more black lives were taken. That's what happens when you demonize the cops.
Yeah. Yep. That's what happens when you're an idiot. All right, what is this? Alexander Rocha, a father from Iceland, had his 10-year-old son taken away by the court because he opposed the gender transition of... Oh, boy.
My name is Alexander, a father living in Iceland, Reykjavik. And last December, by the decision of the court, my son was taken away from me. The reason? Because I did not want to allow my son to undergo a gender transition and identify as a girl at the only age of 10. As a father, I do not want to see happen to my child who was already diagnosed.
Just for sake of time, we're not going to watch that whole thing. Elon said the woke mind virus even affects Iceland. Yeah, it's clear that the serpent is on the earth causing problems. We can see his work everywhere. I will be so happy when he's gone. The serpent, that is. Let's see, that is from the 20th, 24th. Are we done? I think we're done. I didn't get to see that. We didn't see that post that he made about how to know who's right and who's wrong. You can go with who's funny. Yeah, this is all stuff we've seen. Huh, did he take it down? It was a conversation with ChatGPT versus Grok that was hilarious. Somehow we missed it? Nope. Maybe it's in the replies. Bummer. I should have saved it. It was hilarious. All right. Well, there you go. Moving on. What do we have next? So, Gog, Magog. Let's do, I got a couple of videos just for, let's start with the one from Tovia Singer. I wasn't actually planning on showing this video, but we'll start with this one because he does a very good job of explaining some things. And then we got another video of a gentleman who thinks it starts for Purim. So we'll look at both of these. Oops, wrong video.
Awake, awake, O Zion, arise, shake off the dust, lift your eyes. The chains that bound you
God's gonna
are broken at last. Your time of sorrow is now in the past. From darkness to light, you call me to shine. Your glory surrounds, your love is deep.
All right, here we go. So let's start with Tovia Singer. What's unfolding in Iran right now is all messianic prophecy. You're not wrong about that, sir. Let's see.
Our people have been reading about for thousands of years, and we're watching it unfold before our eyes.
Yep.
So absolutely. Yeah.
Well, indeed, and this was really the first thing I wanted to ask you. Before we talk about lots of specific things that are happening, sometimes it's important just to zoom out a bit, because you and I look at the world through a Jewish lens, a biblical lens, and you and I know, and I assume many of our viewers also can see, that we are very clearly in the end of days from a Jewish standpoint. There are Jews returning to the land of Israel,
the Jewish and a Christian
once
standpoint.
again flourishing, responding to its people, Israel being a great exporter of fruit and vegetable, which is one of the signs we're told of the end times, all the world's attention and magnifying glass on Israel. So we've known that, but we've known that for a while, that we're clearly in this time period. I'm wondering, as someone, you are clearly someone that's deeply well-read in the prophets, in the what's foretold about what will happen in the end times in the Torah. Are there any developments more recently, maybe in the last few years, last few months, that you want to highlight that maybe can point to some even more specific developments that we should expect to see from a prophetic standpoint?
Yeah, so we have entire chapters in Tanakh that are unfolding right now. The Hebrew Bible very clearly tells us what would occur at the end of days. And you're quite right. The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel before the Messiah comes. You know, there are 14 chapters in the book of Zechariah.
He emphasizes that, which it's interesting. This is kind of the Jewish view on why they don't accept Jesus, is they don't accept that he came the first time, but surely you've got to be able to reason that someone could come the first time to lay a foundation and prepare for their kingdom. I don't understand why they're so absolutely against acknowledging that. The next guy we watch is a Messianic Jew, which he does believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But Tovia, man, I think he could wake up so many Jewish people if he were just to realize that Yeshua is the Messiah that they're waiting for. He sees the signs from the Old Testament. We see the signs from the New Testament. I would argue that in some cases we have more evidence, but I don't know. That's probably not true. But we've got some pretty concrete evidence that we're in the end times. And the fact that I think the reason why they refuse to acknowledge that evidence is because it proves that Jesus is the Messiah. He's the one responsible for the book of Revelation. And he's also responsible for giving very specific information about what it's going to be like before he returns. It blows my mind that Tovia Singer, who knows very well what is going to happen before the Messiah returns, will not associate Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21 with those things, which is quite literally what Jesus said. This is what's going to happen before I return. And it's very specific. It's very detailed. And he sees it happening a lot in the Old Testament. And there's way more than he's aware of. Like with the signs in the heavens, the seals, the events, that's pointed to a lot of events. Jesus, for all intents and purposes, Jesus basically gave us the information to know about COVID. Granted, not beforehand. A lot of these things, like you can't recognize it until it happens. But he gave us the information, so basically proved that he told us about COVID. He told us about the Biden administration and what would happen during the Biden administration and the effect that it would have on the entire world. He was right about that. He was right about the woke mind virus. He told us about October 7th before it happened. And Tovia Singer points to that as a key event that points to the return of the Messiah. So close, dude. So close.
And the book of Zechariah is not the easiest book in the world. In fact, Rashi says that in the only introduction he ever.
The book of Zechariah is where the two witnesses are talked about, Zechariah 4, and Zerubbabel, who is the one who starts the foundation of the temple and then finishes it. But the temple's not built by power or by might. It's built by my spirit.
Gives on anything he ever wrote.
Wow.
He says this is a tough book. That's how he starts. And the reason he says that is because it begins with 8 numinous visions, very famous. Yeah. This is not it's not very complicated. It's not that easy.
You can't understand them until you're living it.
However, there's one chapter in Zechariah that if you don't read it when you're 120 years old, God's going to ask you why you didn't read it, and you're not going to have an excuse because you can read it without any commentary at all. Zechariah 12 tells us about the restoration of the Jewish people to the land of Israel before the Messiah comes and the liberation of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem will be a heavy, burdensome stone to all the nations.
My question to Tovia is when the Messiah comes and he tells you his name is Yeshua, are you going to believe him? I think so. I think that I believe that, so Jesus said he won't return until they say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. I believe that there is going to be a recognition. There's going to be an aha moment. And I'm beginning to think that Tovia Singer is a linchpin. And that he's got a level of popularity on the internet that I think that once he realizes that Yeshua is the Messiah, that he's going to be like Paul, to where you're not going to be able to shut him up. He's going to everything he knows about the New Testament is going to fall into place, and he's going to be a force for, this is how I missed it. This is, what you need to understand to see that Yeshua is the Messiah. He keeps pointing to these things that had to happen before the Messiah returns, but it's no coincidence that Christians are also looking for the Messiah right now. It's like you have the Jews looking for the Messiah. They've acknowledged certain events that must happen in the end times, and you have the Christians looking for the Messiah. We're both looking for the Messiah at the same time. It stands to reason we might be looking for the same Messiah. Which the only thing that they're refusing to acknowledge is that the Messiah already came on earth. He was here, and then he had to leave. That's the part they're missing. You're missing the key part that he already came. He started something, and then, you know, he had to leave for reasons. He had to go receive his kingdom and then return. So
that come against it. God is going to take a people who for some reason have been weakened. Now, we know from a prophet who lived around the same time, just a little bit earlier, Jeremiah, about the Holocaust, called Jacob's Trouble, in Jeremiah 30, verse 7, in which Jeremiah looks into the future and tells us that there's a day coming, that there's nothing more horrible like what is going to come in the future. Remember, Jeremiah lived during a really bad time. So he's saying in the future, it's called Jacob's Trouble. There'll be nothing like it. That means something really bad. But the end of the passage, umimeno yivoshe.
This is where we're going to get into Gog and Magog. This is why I wanted you guys to see this, is because he's talking about Jacob's trouble. He's talking about it from a Jewish perspective, and then he talks about it with Gog and Magog. And we've been looking, we saw the sign which indicates that we're in seal number 5. And we saw from scripture that seal number 5 is very likely the period of time where we see the great tribulation. This is worse than just the tribulation. This is worse than the beginning of sorrows. This is something that happens on the earth that has never happened before. And what's interesting about that is there's been some pretty monumental things that have happened on the earth. So what the hell qualifies for great tribulation? Because, I mean, if you just look at the flood killed everybody on the planet except 8 peoples, So if the great tribulation if that's counted as, worst thing to ever happen on the planet, from God's perspective, that may not be the worst thing. From his perspective, that was a cleansing of the trash and the refreshing of mankind with Noah's family. So from the great tribulation in the Greek is thalipsis, and it means pressure. And in a lot of cases, a literal usage of tribulation means crushing pressure. It's not just a pressure. It's a pressure that pushes down, like pushing down grapes. You push something to the point that it breaks, or releases juice. That's the kind of pressure that the great tribulation is. So it may be more than just a bunch of, massive death around the world, because one of the things we floated is like, so does this mean World War III, where everybody's just nuking each other? I think it's more than that. I think that this is going to be a time of trial and testing, to where people are going to be truly challenged in what they believe and, what's going on around them. Right now, I was just listening to somebody today going, I'm not going to go through the Great Tribulation. I could just see somebody knocking on their door and punching them in the face. You know what I mean? It's just like egotistically thinking you're protected from this, because they think that there's, they're going to be raptured away before the Great Tribulation. I don't see anything in the scripture that implies that. If anything, I see we go through the Great Tribulation. So seal number 5 is the Great Tribulation, and then it's cut short with the magnetic pole shift. The magnetic pole shift is what actually seems to me like it's going to bring an end to the Great Tribulation. And then that's when we see the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And sometime in seal number 6 is when Christ returns. Probably towards the Festival of the Trumpets. Could be right at the opening. I don't know. But anyway, let's go.
Okay, 2 critical words I want you, the viewer, to look up. From this catastrophe, you will be saved.
Yep.
Which is a story of our history. From the blood, b'domai chayi, we recite at a bris milah, at a circumcision, at a Passover Seder, and actually comes from a passage in the book of Ezekiel.
Our next video is gonna parallel it with Esther and Mordecai, being because we have Purim coming up, and he's of the opinion that that's when the pressure starts to ramp up, is at Purim.
Ezekiel. However, the nation is weakened, but God will strengthen the people of Israel, and even the weakest of them will be like David, even like the angel of the Lord of hosts. If you're tracking this, it's Zechariah 12, verse 7 and 8. God will destroy all the nations that come up against Jerusalem. Against the Messiah is not here yet. This is very critical, because when the Messiah comes, there's complete peace. So these are the immediate events before the Messiah comes. Persia modern day Iran, is our implacable enemy. I didn't make it up. It's openly, explicitly Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 5. They are the head of Gog, the nation that, and it doesn't really make sense logically. Persia was at the time a benevolent or benign empire to the Jews. Jews didn't have trouble with the Sasanian Empire, the ancient Persian Empire. On the contrary, Cyrus is our good friend. But the prophets say at the end of days, Persia will be your implacable enemy. This is explicit in the text. I hope you'll put this on pause when you're watching this and look up all these critical passages. And then we're told that something catastrophic will happen in that there will be a mass attack. Now, there's two opinions on this. It's the Mashiach ben Yosef moment. But they will look, the nation will turn to me because of those who are killed or stabbed or pierced through. But Dakaru is plural, and that will cause a tremendous mourning among the children of Israel. So this is one of the last preliminary events that triggers the Messianic age. The Jewish people are united in a mourning over a massive terror attack. Now, in case you think that this...
And see, from the Christian perspective, for those who are paying attention to the book of Revelation, that's the opening of seal number 4, death followed by hell, which we have actual factual data that points to that. So the event that he says signifies to the Jewish people that the Messiah is about to return. The Christians know as seal number 4. That's the death followed by hell.
Sounds conspiratorial. The Talmud tells us in Megillah, page 30, Daf Lamed, tells us that in fact, Milchemes Gog uMagog, I mean the end time war, begins on Sukkot. Not only that, the Talmud says that Beglal Zeh, because of this, when the Sabbath that comes out on Sukkot, what does the Haftorah read? Ezekiel 38 and 39. So this is not, so this is, when I say these two things, when we're talking about this stuff, this is massive text on this.
So you're saying that event, that great terror event, was October 7th, you think?
Yes, everything is pointing in that direction. Absolutely. There's nothing, for the viewers who don't...
See, I don't disagree with everything Tovia says. He and I are in agreement on this. Although I do disagree with him because he says that the one who was pierced is referring to the people who died on October 7th, which it may be. I can see his perspective. I actually have a video I was going to respond to about that, but he says it here. I can see his perspective, but I also see that it can also refer to Yeshua as the one being pierced as well. It could even refer to both because God is just that big. Multiple things. He's pretty good at types and shadows and patterns and things that repeat. So it's entirely possible that, there's a correlation between Christ's suffering and the Jewish people's suffering.
Get the magnitude of October 7th, so we know it's terrible. But think of, let's take Kristallnacht, right? So Kristallnacht is the trigger, the precursor to the Holocaust, 1938, November 10th, Luther's birthday. So Kristallnacht is the fuse that launches the Holocaust, right? Well, how many Jews were killed on Kristallnacht? 92. I mean, there's just nothing, there's no parallel to this. The Kishinev pogroms of 1903. When we think of massive attacks, so that means a terror.
I think I might be the only person on the internet, only Christian, who is making the claim that I think the abomination of desolation is October 7th. And that's based on Matthew 24 and Luke 21, specifically where it says, for when you see Jerusalem surrounded, then know its desolation is near. I think that's what he's, a lot of what the event that he's pointing to that was a trigger for the people, and also the marker for seal number 4, one of the markers out of many.
Attack. So on Passover.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of Christians who think the abomination of desolation is when some guy is going to go into a temple and declare that he is God, or desecrate the temple, which I should remind you, the temple doesn't exist right now. It has not been built. And we have no idea if it ever will be built. And also, there's nobody nobody that I'm aware of right now claiming to be God to fit that. So, like, they're still waiting for something to happen that's probably never going to happen. But I do believe that the abomination of desolation was October 7th.
On the first day of Passover, 1903, in Kishinev, the Jewish community for 2 days is being slaughtered by Orthodox Christians who think that the Jews killed a Christian boy for the blood for the matzah. Okay? How many Jews were killed? 49. This, by the way, that the Kishinev pogroms, which we all have heard of, and you can see the photographs, it was something that was front page all over the world. That's what triggers Jabotinsky, because he lived a few towns over. This is 1,200 Jews murdered, 251 kidnapped. There's nothing of this magnitude and order in a matter of hours. Because if you tell me Khomensky, that was over the course of years. The Holocaust over the course of years. We're talking about one dark Sabbath, a Simchas Torah here in Israel. I was here. It was something. Anything I would say about it would only diminish. There's nothing to talk about. So we are very much living in this very critical time, and this pain, this that was inflicted upon our people, had a remarkable impact, not only on us and on unity of the Jewish people, the religiosity of the Jewish people, Hebrew University, even despite its name, it's not the most religious institution in the world. But they did a survey, it was in the Jerusalem Post a few weeks ago, that 25% of Israelis have become religious after October 7th.
Yeah.
It's just, but another thing has happened as well, which is the mystery of October 7th. And that is the middle around the world has fallen out, which means prior to October 7th, anti-Semitism, open, explicit anti-Semitism was there, but it was expressed by fringe people, not in the mainstream. Yeah, there was the Ku Klux Klan, David Duke, the weirdos. They were always there, but they were always on the fringe. But now it's become mainstream. So people now, like, why after October 7th? So that's exactly what we would expect to find. The famous Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, I'll bless those who bless you, curse those who can curse you, and in you all the nations of the world will be blessed. God is speaking to Abraham in context. It's an interesting passage because it says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. But wait, we're missing something. What about the people in between? The answer is there will be nobody in between. Like, we just met, like in Jerusalem's old city. We never had this conversation.
So the search for terrestrial intelligence 7795 regarding Daniel 12, we actually talked about that quite a lot. In the videos about leading up to February 17, 2026, I think that's pointing to the Great Tribulation. That's pointing to the war of Gog and Magog. I think that's coming. That seems to line up with what's coming.
But if I ask you, Ali, what do you think of the Chinese, the largest race in the world? I know I'm pretty confident that you're going to say, I don't really have a strong opinion about the Chinese or the Koreans or the Japanese. They seem okay. But when it comes to the Jews, if I was sitting on the streets of Manchester, London, Antwerp, San Francisco, and asked people, what do you think of the Jews? And the only part of this thought experiment was, the only caveat is they had to say the truth. You and I know exactly what would happen. You will either say, I hate the Jews or I love the Jews. We are, and that's why we could see people from the extreme right, extreme left, who are joined together in this orgy of hatred for Israel after.
We'll listen to this a little bit longer till probably about here, and then we'll switch to the other video.
October 7th. So everything that is unfolding now is right in Scripture.
Yep.
That's absolutely fascinating. And so this great morning that was it Zechariah that speaks of this great morning that will occur?
Yeah.
So
Zechariah 12.
Zechariah 12, right. So you think that that was basically the great morning was in response to October 7th?
Right. And the Talmud says it begins on Sukkot. And there's nothing. What I did was I just took two Kristallnacht. So people think of Kristallnacht correctly as the precursor to the Holocaust, right? I don't have to explain to anyone what Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht pales. It was 92 Jews who were murdered in Kristallnacht. Granted, hundreds of synagogues were destroyed for sure. It pales in comparison to what occurred on October 7th in a matter of hours. In a matter of hours. We're going to find out, unfortunately, what happened. It was a perfect storm of everything that could go wrong went wrong. But the one mystery, and we haven't, for the viewers to know, we haven't had a conversation prior to this. The one mystery that befuddles us all is, why all the hatred now after October 7th, or the love now?
Yeah.
Like, why are people, so many people who saying, I love the Jews now, and I didn't before October 7th, or conversely, I hate the Jews now, and prior to that, they were relatively quiet on the matter. What's happening? That's what's happening.
Right. Yeah, my sense is October, like a lot of this, as you say, was simmering under the surface, and October 7th, sort of, I saw as like the day it just burst the bubble, and suddenly everyone had to kind of focus in on this, and for good or for ill, and precisely as you say, like you'd expect a lot of sympathy. On the other hand, there's that famous line of, I think it was Howard Jacobson, that Europe never forgave the Jews for the Holocaust, meaning that, you know, the need to have sympathy for the Jews also causes all kinds of resentment and envy. That's absolutely fascinating, your assessment of this. I've heard some people, though, say that when they look at how Gog and Magog is described, some people say it more seems to point towards Turkey. So what's your reaction to that?
You don't have to guess this one through. There's only one source in all of Tanakh where the word Gog is mentioned.
Yep.
This is not like it's all over the place. This is not like some weird idea. It's just very simple. It's a confederacy of nations led by Persia. It's right in there. Again, our source, Ezekiel 38, doesn't matter what translation you use, it's Persia. The reason, again, Persia is counterintuitive. Israel never had a direct war.
See, this is the first time I've ever actually heard Gog of Magog referred to as Persia. I've always heard that it was Russia, because I was of the opinion that Russia-Ukraine was Gog of Magog. But he's saying that it's the Iran, what's happening with Iran right now is Gog of Magog.
Or with Persia. We've had wars directly with Syria, with Egypt, with Jordan. We have them all. But number two is it's not an Arab country. We don't have a land border with them. Persia, meaning modern day Iran, is 1,000 kilometers east of where I am right now. They're very far away, and yet they are our implacable enemy. They're the head of the snake. So this is not like a guessing game. Moreover, I want to just solve a mystery. People going, Gog, what's that? So Gog, Umagog, the war of Gog, everyone knows about that. But what does it mean? So I want to just saturate that and give a little meaning to it.
Please. And also, can you clarify, what is Magog?
Yeah, well, but that means from it actually, Gog Magog does not appear in Tanakh, that phrase.
Yeah.
But Gog, it actually says in Ezekiel 38, please look it up, Gog from the land of Magog.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it's, but Gog Magog is gematria, its numerical value is 70, referring to the 70 nations. That's why that phrase itself is not in the Bible. But the key point is, what is Gog? What does that mean? What is that? There is no country called Gog. So why did Ezekiel call it Gog? Moreover, it's very interesting. When the Messiah comes, this is so intriguing. We're told in Scripture, specifically Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, one of the most famous messianic prophecies about the Messiah himself, that one like a son of man, meaning he has a daddy,
That's
not
right.
born of a virgin, will come with.
Okay, so we've addressed this before on how Jesus is the Son of Man. If you're new here, or if you missed that video, matter of fact, I showed a video last night on the live that I started working on to illustrate how Jesus is the Son of Man. He had a daddy. God is technically his daddy, in the same way that God is Adam's daddy. Now, what he's referring to is a sperm donor. Like, Adam did not have a sperm donor. That's why God is Adam's father. The first man ever made, he was formed from the dust of the ground, and God did the forming, which is what makes God the father of Adam. Well, he did the same thing with Jesus, in that Jesus was born of a virgin, meaning she hadn't had intercourse with any men, so there was no sperm donor to actually contribute the seed. But I've made the argument, and I could be wrong, but I've made what I think is a valid argument for how the genetics required for God to make a seed are all in the rib. So the ribs are they produce stem cells, which are cells that can be converted into any other cell in the body. This is why God took a bone from Adam and formed Eve, because all the material needed to make a body was in the rib. So based on that information, we can infer that that is one possible explanation for how God was able to form the seed from Mary in order to impregnate her. So there didn't need to be anything miraculous other than him converting stem cells into seed and implanting them into Mary, which still made Jesus human, still had a seed. He was still formed from both a sperm and an egg. But what it did is it made it so that he did not inherit the Y chromosome from Adam. So there's something about Adam's Y chromosome that is blemished. So Jesus would have had a brand new Y chromosome that would have been equal to what Adam had before he sinned. Same genetic material. So that's the thing that Tovia is missing here. And he makes this point that son of man means mommy and a daddy. So there is an explanation there for how Jesus, and this is why John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believeth on him will not perish but have everlasting life. Begotten is a very specific word. It means sperm and an egg. That is what to beget means, is it means a man contributed his seed to impregnate into a woman. There's the implication of seed and egg coming together. So in this case, because there wasn't a man to contribute the seed, it was God who likely formed the seed from Mary to make Yeshua, which made him the Son of Man. He fulfilled that Son of Man. So that's something that Tovia is missing and doesn't understand. And to be honest, this is another thing that I think I'm probably the only person on the internet who's made this connection before. Not trying to toot my own horn. I demand explanations for things. I don't, quote unquote, just accept things on faith, especially when there's a plausible explanation. And we know this is possible because there's a process called gamechanger in science where they have done this exact thing. They have taken the stem cells from mice. They took a female mouse, took stem cells from her rib, caused that cell to become seed, implanted it into the same mouse, and she produced a baby mouse. So this is something we know is a very real possibility. So much so that even women who prefer women as their partners are looking to this process in order to produce children among themselves. We are definitely living in the days of Noah. But yeah, so there's that is so underreported that people aren't aware of that. But why that's important is because Jesus had to have blood, right? Because it's the blood that cleanses. And without the blood, there is no cleansing. There is no atonement. So we do, Christians do believe that Jesus was a man. We made a whole movie about it called The Chosen. Let's continue.
The clouds of heaven, coming with the clouds of heaven to the Ancient of Days, which is God. This is God. This is complete consensus. Yep. And then the Almighty in verse 14 says that all nations will serve him, meaning that when the Messiah comes, there will be all nations will come, as Isaiah 61 says, arise and shine for you. 60, arise and shine, your light has come. Kings will go by your light. So why is the Messiah coming with clouds of heaven? What does he need? What are the clouds about? Okay, this really becomes very simple. Gog in Hebrew means what? A roof. A Gog means a roof, right? It's just simple. A Gog in
See, this is where Judaism has an advantage, I think, over Christians because they speak the language of the Old Testament. Most people who don't speak the language and are left to the materials for us to understand the language have a harder time understanding this. This is the first time I've heard this too. I don't know if it's true. But it's the first time I've heard this under this interpretation of Gog Magog.
Hebrew means the roof, like right. So you have a people that trust in a reinforced concrete roof. Okay, they go to war against those who don't trust in the reinforced concrete roof, but rather those who trust in the clouds of heaven.
What it's really interesting that he says this, because both in Matthew 24 and in Revelation 6, seal number 6, it does mention about the bunkers, about people going into the mountains and underneath the mountains. So 5th seal, 6th seal. The mighty men and every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks and in the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. And then in Matthew, you've also got, and they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with great glory. And let's see, no, that's then the sign of the sun, and then the tribes of the earth will mourn. I think that's what he's referring to. This might be a parallel to what he's referring to where if Gog Magog, if it truly does mean roof, and he's likening it to like a bomb shelter or a bunker, that could be referring to what drives people underground because of what they see coming. Oops, I lost the video. There it is.
Meaning they trust in the Almighty God. And what happens is essentially you have the roof people who trust in the physical world going to war against those who trust in the Sukkah, who trust in the Schach, who trust in the clouds of glory that protected the children of Israel miraculously in their 40-day trek journey throughout the wilderness.
Interesting.
And that's really the end time war. It's the roof people against the cloud people. And this is so beautiful. That's why at the end of Zechariah, what are we told? All the nations at the end of days, they're going to celebrate a Jewish holiday. What holiday are all the nations of the world going to celebrate in verse 16?
Sukkot.
Sukkot. Why are they celebrating Sukkot? Well, in what universe do...
So I asked Grok about this, because he referred to this a couple of times. I wasn't sure what he was referring to. Oh, hey, I didn't know you could do dual pages. That's cool. We don't really need to do that. How do I separate this? Arrange, split views, separate views. There you go. So I asked it. I heard the Talmud says Zechariah 12 starts of Sukkot, and he says, yeah, let's see. I think I know what you heard. It's a bit garbled, but points to a real Talmudic passage. The Talmud, which is Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Sukkah 52a, directly quotes and discusses Zechariah 12, verses 10 and especially 12. In the context, here, let's go read those. Zechariah 12. Hmm. 12. And then where was it? It was Zechariah 12 verses 10 and 12. So we'll read 10 through 12. 10. All right. Mourning for the pierced one. And I will pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication. Then they will look on me whom they pierced. Yes, they will mourn for him as one who mourns for his only son. Christians see this as Jesus because he was crucified. Jews look at this as Tovia is saying that this is pointing to October 7th. Yes, they will mourn for him as one who mourns for his only son, and grieve for him as one who grieves for a firstborn. In that day there shall be a great mourning in Jerusalem, like the mourning of Hadad Rimmon in the plain of Megiddo. And the land shall mourn, every family by itself, the family of the house of David by itself, and their wives by themselves, the family of the house of Nathan by itself, and their wives by themselves. All right, so that's what the Talmud is referring to, that Tovia is referring to. So now we have some context here. In the context of Sukkot, or Sukkos, or Sukkos, the Feast of Tabernacles, the whole tractate, Sukkah, is about the laws and customs of Sukkot, so that this Sukkos link, it's not in Zechariah 12, literally says the start of Sukkot or anything like that, but rabbis use it to derive a practical rule now for Sukkot celebrations, how Sukkot celebrations should be run. Quick breakdown of what the Talmud actually says here. They're talking about the super joyful Simchat Beit Hashuva water drawing celebration during Sukkot in the temple era, a huge party with music, dancing, lights. So is that why they were in the desert at the festival, partying, to keep things holy and prevent any impropriety from the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, kicking in amid all rejoicing? They had a separation of men and women, like in Mekitza. How do you prove this is necessary? They quote Zechariah 12:12 about a future end of days mourning, M-O-U-R-N, mourn. And the land shall mourn, every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart. The Talmud says, if even in that future time of mourning, when the evil inclination won't even be strong, the Torah requires men and women to be separate, then all the more so. During our current Sukkot rejoicing, we definitely need separation. That's the direct tie to the Sukkot practices. Right before that, they quote Zechariah 12:10, and they shall look upon me, whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one who mourns for an only son, and debate what the mourning is for. One opinion, mourning for Mashiach ben Yosef, Messiah, son of Joseph, who gets killed in the war of Gog and Magog. Interesting. Other opinion, mourning for the evil inclination itself being slain by God in the future. This passage is often brought up in Jewish Christian discussions because of the pierced part, but that's a whole other topic. It is a whole other topic. Side note on actual Sukkot readings. The official Haftarah, prophetic reading for the first day of Sukkot, is actually Zechariah 14, not 12, which talks about all the surviving nations coming up to Jerusalem every year to celebrate Sukkot in the Messianic era. That's the more direct Sukkot in the future prophecy. So yeah, the Talmud doesn't say Zechariah 12 equals the start of Sukkot, but does heavily reference Zechariah 12 while laying down rules for Sukkot observances. That's almost certainly the thing you heard about. Yeah, so that's the relation that he is talking about in the Talmud regarding. So that's why he thinks October 7th is Zechariah 12. I'd argue that I'd just say that it's both. It could be referring to October 7th and the Messiah, because both of them result in mourning.
Non-Jews celebrate Sukkot in Jewish law, but suddenly all the non-Jews who accept the God of Israel, who stand by Israel, will celebrate the festival that celebrates the clouds. Ah, now we understand. This is so magnificent. This is so mind-blowing. So what happens is the nations that stood by Israel means they trusted in the clouds of heaven rather than the roof. And therefore, they're going to celebrate the festival of Sukkot with the Jewish people. So that's what's unfolding right now.
Wow. And I actually remember thinking as October 7th was unfolding in the days afterwards that, you know, the fact that we read, I can't remember which number it is. What Psalm number were we reading in the month of Elul and then over Rosh Hashanah? About David, the Lord is my light and my salvation. I can't remember, it's 20 something. I can't remember which one it is. But the fact that we basically it says there that when my enemies rise against me and war will encircle me, I will trust in God. And it also spoke about false witnesses rising against me who breathe violence. The word for violence was Hamas. And I thought, well, yeah, exactly. That's precisely what Hamas is. That's precisely what the Palestinian movement is. They are false witnesses. They're claiming that we are thieves to the land and that they are the real rightful owners. I wonder if you resonated at all with any of that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's the critical part of the numinous Psalms, like Psalm 23. And King David is building to this in that he's saying King David had numerous enemies in his life. In Psalm 23 and then Psalm 27, all these Psalms, King David is ultimately saying, God is the only one that can protect me. He is the one that surrounds me. He is the only one. We actually have prophecy in Tanakh of when Jerusalem would be liberated, when this would occur. It's in the book of Daniel that it would occur 2,300 years after Alexander the Great would defeat Xerxes in the famous Battle of Granicus. The events that are occurring right now are so precise. It's so interesting, Ali. We met on a Friday evening. I was going to the Western Wall. I think you were leaving on a Friday night prayer. I believe so. We met in the Old City. And this goes back to what you said from the very beginning. If you want to talk to God, go to the Western Wall. If you want to see God, go to the Shuk, the market in Jerusalem, and see the abundance of vegetables and the abundance of growth there, because these are the promises that are unfolding now, that the land which Mark Twain, when he visited Israel, was nothing. There was nothing here. He writes about that in his work, Innocents Abroad.
Right. There's a lot more really good stuff in this video. We're going to skip it. He does talk about Tucker Carlson. I'm really tempted to skip ahead to that, but I want to stay on Gog Magog and then come over here to this guy who I found today and listen to what he has to say, because he's got a warning. Now, I'm not vouching for this guy. It's just somebody who showed up in my feed today I thought was interesting because it's along the line of Gog Magog. He associates it with Purim, and which is coming up in March 2nd. So we're just days away from this, which is very interesting because there's a very interesting planetary alignment that's happening February 28th. So right before Purim, there is a planetary alignment of 6 of the planets, which is interesting. 6 is the number for man. And also, I think there's a blood moon coming up here soon, too. So let's listen to what he has to say in regards to this.
But the spirit did not let me rest. Told me to really... It is the middle of the night here in Seoul, South Korea. And I'm after significant surgery. But the spirit did not let me rest. Told me to release to you this shocking and chilling word. As often the Spirit of God showed me something in the most unexpected times, even in time.
So normally I don't listen to people who have dreams and visions and talk to Jesus and stuff like that. The way he's wording this is probably the only way I would take this to be serious is he's referring to the Spirit of God, which I think that we're all capable of hearing that still small voice. I do believe that God talks to us and we recognize him in our own ways. It's just, there's so many people out there right now who are saying God's giving them information. It's hard to know, who is really hearing from God, listening to that still small voice, or or that are confusing their own thoughts for the Spirit speaking to them. Now, the way he words this, I feel kind of gives credibility to it because like I've had those nights of restlessness where I couldn't go to sleep because something was just yelling at me in my head. I've also had those nights to where, it was just a still small voice. So I can relate. So that's why I didn't immediately click away from his video.
That I'm in great pain. So this video, right ahead of Purim, is a significant video. All I'm asking you to do is to share, like, and consider supporting the poor and the needy today at the link below. This week, we're receiving the biggest hint that the attack upon Iran is imminently about to happen. Although I tell you again and again, we cannot play with times and dates. I believe that everything is lined up for an attack, an imminent attack of the United States and possibly Israel during the week of Parashat Tetzaveh. I would like to line it up to you specifically with Purim right this morning. You're probably wondering what it's have to do with Gog and Magog as well. I hope that this video will reach the thousands and the tens of thousands. Our rabbis revealed to us a terrible secret, and in all the years reading the Megillah, I had never seen it until today, right after my surgery. I read in the Torah portion this week, this Friday, we enter in Tetzaveh when we read the word. Attach the two stones to the shoulder pieces of the ephod as stones for remembrance of the Israelite people, whose name Aaron will carry upon the two shoulder pieces for remembrance before God. Did you notice that? This Shabbat, we are enter into Shabbat Zechor. This is an important Shabbat. And there is a connection between Gog and Magog, Shabbat Zechor, and Iran that I want to reveal to you today. Please share this video. In the Torah portion this week, it says that Aaron took the two stones and they call Avnei Zikaron. It's the stone of Zikaron. The word Zikaron coming from the word Zechor. And the rabbis point to us that the reason we are saying today in Shabbat Zechor these things, because it is a direct reference to the book of Deuteronomy. This Shabbat, right before America is attacking, to Deuteronomy 25:17, when it says, Zechor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you. You notice that those two stones are a memorial for what Amalek has.
All right. That ticking in the background is annoying. I want to switch over here to this real quick.
We think it's going to be a swarming attack, multiple different attacks. We think it's going to be a swarming attack, multiple different attacks.
So this is something that showed up on the Sean Ryan show from Sarah Adams. This is something that, so they're aware that there are sleeper cells in America. And this is kind of what I'm expecting the Great Tribulation to be like, is to where there is something globally that's prepared. And it makes sense that it's associated with Iran. Who's here? Hopefully I know them. Something that's associated with Iran. And sorry, just trying to tell if that's my wife or somebody else. I think that's my wife. If anything happens to me in the next 5 minutes, maybe the Great Tribulation is starting. Such a weird timing with playing this video. But what he's talking about reminded me of this.
One time across multiple cities. We think there will be bombers just because some of the attackers went through bomber training and they have these vests. And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed.
So these guys are trained and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. And that matters, right? So I was watching this video and it was a bombing in Kabul years ago. The bomber blew up and then everyone starts moving in, the first responders move in, and then another guy walks in and blows up. We know this is a tactic, right? But if Americans don't understand this is a tactic and don't understand these attackers are going to fight to the death, we have to be very careful that we don't have more people die in these second and third order effects of not knowing their intent. We think it's going to be a swarming attack.
All right, so this video made me think of Sarah Adams here. And I'm not trying to fearmonger. I'm just pulling pieces together of things that are happening around us. By all accounts, it looks like we're in seal number 5. And during seal number 5 seems to be when the Great Tribulation happens, according to Matthew 24. And the Great Tribulation is going to seem, it's going to be worse than anything that's ever happened on the earth before, which gives an indication of scale. So I think it's worth listening to these kind of things. This guy seems to be credible. I could be wrong. Like I said, he just showed up in my feed today. But it's interesting that it's associated with Gog and Magog.
It's done to you. And the rabbis told us that this is the Shabbat on the prophetic calendar where Amalek is going to be wiped out. Am I saying that this is going to happen this week? I am not saying anything. I am just pointing to you what the rabbis are telling us. And they couldn't.
So he's got Zikaron is connected to Amalek, Iran, and Gog and Magog. And I would point out here, so let me give a recap of what we've covered in regards to this before. So Matthew 24, well, I'm here. Let's see, Matthew 12 here. So Matthew 12 seems to be associated with the Great Tribulation, or sorry, Daniel 12. At that time, Michael, this is referring to, I believe, Michael the archangel. At that time, Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as was never since there was a nation even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book, and many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. All right, so that's Daniel 12, and then where's Matthew 24? Matthew 24 right here. Too far. Right. Where's the highlight? Oh, I'm in Matthew 25. Where's my highlights? Yeah, let me refresh the page. There it is. For some reason it disappeared. All right, so here, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, I believe this is October 7th, standing in the holy place, and let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is in the housetop not go down to take anything out of the house, and let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant, to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on the Sabbath. That, I think, was October 7th, which is what Tovia Singer was associating with Zechariah 12, the great piercing, the mourning like a newborn. And then right here, seal number 5, I think, is the great tribulation. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world. Until this time, no, nor ever shall be. It'd be interesting to look at to see if the world is actually in the original text, because when we look back at Daniel 12, it says since the beginning of nations, such as never was since there was a nation. See, that would make more sense to me, that whatever happens here is worse, is the worst thing to ever happen since there's been nations. That would actually make more sense, but it does say since the beginning of the world, but this would be worth investigating. Until this time, no, nor ever shall be, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. So there's an indication of death here. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So it sounds like it's not going to last so long that everybody dies. Then if anyone says to you, so this is interesting because this tells you what it's going to be like. It can't be all that bad because people are going to think they're going to be seeing Jesus everywhere, which it's weird now that we have AI and deep fakes that, people are going to be making deep fakes of Jesus showing up. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it, for false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. I think that's a callback to John 14:29 when Jesus says, I tell you these things beforehand so that when they come to pass, you will believe. See, Jesus says, see, I've told you beforehand. Therefore, if anyone says to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out, or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. Then right after that is, for as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, because remember that tribulation is cut short, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And then here we've got seal number 5, which when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the soul of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on the earth, on those who dwell on the earth? Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. So in seal number 5, there's the indication that there's still going to be death happening to believers. So those people who say that you're going to be raptured away before the great tribulation, it doesn't fit with the order of things. There's people who are going to die during seal number 5. And then you have seal number 6. I looked when he opened the 6th seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. So there's a parallel here to Matthew. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. And the stars of heaven fell to the earth as fig trees drop its figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up, and every mountain and island moved out of its place. This is what indicates that the magnetic pole shifts, because every island so the sky rolling up and the islands and the mountains moving out of their place implies that the earth is going to roll over in a way that it doesn't normally rotate. So the North Pole is going to go down to the equator. South Pole is going to go up to the equator. Here is a visual of what it's going to look like. This was after, not only after the pole shift, but also after the bowl judgment, which implies that the supercontinent Pangea is coming back. We've talked about that before, but let's not get sidetracked. I'm trying to do a quick summary here. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up. Every mountain, every island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, commanders, and mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains. I wonder if this is Gog Magog. And said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide the face from him who sits on the throne from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come. Okay, so what does all of that mean? So we've got this information based on the seals being opened. It looks like seal number 5 started on February 17th. What it seems, so with the situation with Iran, you've got rabbis who are saying that it's Gog and Magog. You've got this guy saying that, this video we were just watching, this guy saying that it's Gog and Magog and associated with Iran and Amalek, which is associated with Esther and Mordecai because Amalek tried to kill the Jews. And he thinks that this is going to start happening on Purim. And then at the same time, you also have intelligence officers saying that all the countries of the world have been invaded and there's sleeper cells that are waiting to cause great havoc. This seems like it's all pointing to the Great Tribulation, which would be right in the middle of seal number 5. The good news is if this is correct, if that does happen, then you can know that it's not going to last very long. It's not going to last any more than 6 months. So do with this information what you will. It may not happen. Nothing may happen in March, the beginning of March, but there sure is a lot of stuff pointing to something happening very soon. The tensions with Iran, which I'm even monitoring the video feed of Iran, looking for anything here. So this is Iran, Tehran. So far, so good. I don't see anything on fire. But that's where we are. All right, let's continue listening to this guy.
Connected it to Iran, to Persia, specifically to chapter 9 of the book of Esther, when it says the following: these days are recalled and observed in every generation by every family, every province, and every city. And these days of Purim shall never cease among the Jews, and the memory of them shall never perish among their descendants. Do you notice this? It says in Hebrew that their memory will not leave. What is the word in Hebrew for memory? The Hebrew word for memory is the word iskor. 3 times we see this word, zikaron, iskor, memorial, in this Shabbat Torah portion, in connection to Amalek destruction.
So what he's saying is that there's the story of Esther and even Exodus here is pointing to Amalek and Esther and Purim, which, given where we are in the timeline, I got nothing to refute that. I mean, that this could be regarding the supercontinent. I see you guys talking about the supercontinent. I've heard there's 2 things I've heard about the supercontinent. So we know in where is it? Numbers, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus. No, I think it's in Numbers where it says, "In the days of Peleg was the earth divided." There is scriptural support for the possibility of the continents moving apart. We do know that they are on tectonic plates, and we do know that they move. That's what causes earthquakes. It's also possible that just there's additional water, and that's why we have, separation between the continents. I'm aware of the different theories, but the reason why that supercontinent came up is because of the last bowl. So if you look here, first bowl, second bowl, fifth bowl. No, it's the bowl or the trumpet. I always get these mixed up. Where's the trumpet? Shoot, did I pass it? I passed it. 6th bowl, 7th bowl. One day on a show, I was saying that it's interesting that the islands and the mountains are referenced in 2 different places. So if you look at this here, though, so this is the 7th bowl, which is this is at the very end of the very end. So this is like the 7th seal, the 7th bowl. But this is what it says about that. Then every island fled away, and the mountains were not found, which this is different than seal number 6, which says they were moved out of their place. So there's a difference. So seal number 6 seems to be referring to and the reason I say this is because we're literally observing the movement of the planet, of the poles. More specifically, what's his face is. Nope, not that one.
Hey, bro! I got a little present. Listen, I was trying to buy this handcrafted mahogany wood model of a B-25 Mitchell Panchito.
Hang on. Let me find the video with observers. This guy.
Earth's magnetic field comes out of the polar region. Technically, it comes out of the south, and it wraps around the whole planet.
We're literally watching the magnetic poles move, and we can see that they're moving, and the movement is increasing. And this has happened. They speculate that this has happened before, and that it explains why there's woolly mammoths are found at the North Pole with undigested food in their mouth. So that's why I say seal number 6 is probably the magnetic pole shifting, but that doesn't explain the islands and the mountains fleeing away. Like, what causes a mountain to go away? Well, we know tectonic plates are likely the cause of mountains because the process of one plate going under another causes the land to rise up. So it's just an assumption on my part that bowl number 7 is potentially talking about Pangea, if this is in fact a reality, which you can't tell me it's a dumb idea, because anybody looking at a map can see these things fit together. I mean, look at this. The United States, this is, it's just like they fit together like a frickin' jigsaw puzzle. And I would even argue that this could even go down more right there and fit and make a single land mass. So, I know Kent Hovind has made the argument that you don't need the earth, you don't need the continents to move away. All you need is the water to come in and recede. So that could be another thing. The water could recede, revealing a single landmass, and that would still be true. So it doesn't matter if it's a tectonic plate shifting, and we get back to the point being, my entire point about bowl number 7 is that the only way, one of the only ways that I can think of to describe the islands and the islands fleeing away and the mountains being no more is, well, I guess it would have to be more than just the water. Anyway, it seems to be pointing at a single landmass. So it looks like we have two events coming. One is the magnetic pole shift, which changes the planet to be like this without the single landmass. Imagine if everything's back in their original place. And then after it rotates, or actually, no, this is just Pangea. This is the rotation and the single landmass. Hang on, I'm going to go back to this video.
And in connection to the book of Esther, found here in chapter 9, verse 23. Brothers and sisters, this cannot be a coincidence. And I want you to understand this. Our rabbis explain and continue in their explanation, and they say that this passage in the book of Esther, speaking, and I quote, of a decree that although has been passed, has not been fully passed. And I quote, it is belong to the final chapter of the decree that have to be reversed. And it will be reversed in the final war against Amalek, which is now known by the name of Haman and now known by the name of Esav. I want you to understand what I am telling you here, because you're going to see that when this war starting, we are entering the final countdown for the coming of the Messiah. 100%. And I invite you to read The Fall of Edom, the new Hamas, and my upcoming book, Milchemet Emunah. Please, it's not about selling books. It's about what God revealed to me years ago that is happening right at this moment before us. I want you to understand that.
I do believe that God has been revealing this to people for the last 50 years, because I don't think it's any coincidence that everybody's on the same page right now. You know what I mean?
We are in Shabbat Zechor. And here the rabbis continue, and they connected the beginning of this word when Aaron himself have the two stones of memorials to what happened in Amalek. The same word is about Esther, and the rabbis told us this is about the future. But wait, it did not just end there. Let me continue for one moment. The rabbis themselves connected it to the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, verse 29, which it says, "Rejoice not, all Philistia, because the staff of him that beat you is broken. Far from the stalk of the snake will be sprout and asp." You see what is happening right now in the world? The birthing of Satan, the birthing of the anti-Messiah, the birthing of the final forces of evil are being birthed, and they are birthed according to the rabbis
What word
is
is he
Shabbat
saying?
Zechor.
Burted?
The Shabbat we're entering to now, and they connected it to Purim. What a shocking thing it is for us. But he didn't finish there. What does it mean that he's birthed? The rabbi has explained to us the following, that this is the birthing of Gog and Magog. I'm not telling you that Gog and Magog final episode is birthing this weekend. Please understand it. I am pointing to the possibility of what the rabbis point to us. They says in Psalm 80 verse 14, wild pig will chew at it, and creature of the forest feed on it. The rabbis pointed this, and they said that the creature of the forest are birthing. Brothers and sisters, they all are birthing from Esav, from Satan, from Aman, and ultimately from Iran himself.
He's saying birthing.
The word in Hebrew for forest is the word Ya'ar. Ya'ar. The word here is the word Mi-Ya'ar. Listen to what the rabbi said. They say, if you remove the letter Ayin,
Great
which
Tribulation
is
associated
70,
with labor pains.
which is in Gematria, Gog and Magog,
See, this is what
you
Tovia
get
said.
the Hebrew word Amalekite.
See, I don't think that it's any coincidence. I've never heard this before in my life. And then on the same day, both Tavia Singer and this guy brings up that Gog Magog is gematria for 70, referring to the 70 nations of Amalek.
Amalekite, Amaleki in Hebrew. This is a sign that the war against Iran is the war against Amalek that is about to birth the Mashiach.
Yeah, so I know he is kind of hard to understand. What he's saying, so Purim starts on, Fury, can you correct me? I think it starts at sundown on March 2nd and goes until March 3rd, till sundown on March 3rd. So that is Purim. And Purim is the festival recognizing the saving of the Jewish people from the Amalekites. So it's Esther. It's the book of Esther. Specifically, I think like 3 and 4 to like 9. Basically, the whole book of Esther is what Purim is. And what he is saying is that he spiritually feels that the attack on Iran to finally break the hold that it has on the world, being the serpent, is going to take place. It's going to start on Purim. That's what he is saying. That's what I think he is saying. And that this is the battle of Gog and Magog mentioned in Ezekiel 38, which seems to be the same thing that Tovia Singer is saying. He's just given a start date of Purim of March 2nd. He thinks that that's when it's going to start. And I'm just because, we've been talking about seal number 5 and the Great Tribulation, I'm putting this together to where, okay, it seems like this is probably the Great Tribulation because it seems, 70 nations. Anyway, does that make sense? That's basically what he is saying. He's talking about a lot of other things that led him to this conclusion that are hard to follow with like the gematria and the different other places. He talked about some Exodus. But that's the reason why we're watching this.
And Satan into the world, meaning they're about to reveal themselves. Now take a break, because I'm about to show you something that in all my life, studying the scriptures, I have not seen until today in my distress after a surgery. And that's why I'm releasing this video to you, saints, because I want you to know that our Messiah is coded here in the text in Esther 9:28, where it says, again, the days are recalled and observed in every generation by every family, every province, and every city. in these days of Purim shall never cease among the Jews, even though the final decree has not passed yet. And the memory of them shall never be forgotten among their descendants. You know what was this word in Hebrew? Never be forgotten. The Hebrew word for never be forgotten is a name of a person. He has never been forgotten, and he will not be forgotten, and he has a name because he is coming. When the war in Iran and Israel is breaking, he's about to be remembered again. What is the word here? In the Hebrew, his name is, in Hebrew, here is the word Yasuf. The word Yasuf, according to the Ramad, comes from the word Yosef. Who is Yosef, if not Yeshua?
It is Yeshua.
Brothers and sisters, you can quote me on that. That the name Joseph is quoted with the word of Iran that is coming upon us. We are receiving the code, and it will be interesting to see if this Shabbat or during next week we will start to see the birthing of Joseph to the world. Again, let me summarize it to you. Shabbat Zechor, mentioned in this Torah portion. It's mentioned with Amalek, and it's mentioned in Esther 9:28. It's a direct connection to Zechariah 14 and Psalm 80, which talking about the birthing of Satan.
The birthing of
When
Satan.
Israel fighting against Amalek, the final war against Amalek, is going to be the final birthing. The letter Ayin is Gog and Magog. And who is the one who's going to come to remove the final decree? You got it.
Interesting, very interesting. Ayin, which is Gog and Magog, is before us if war breaks during Purim.
It is Yosef himself. I urge you, call upon Yosef today. And please, for the love of God, bring tzedakah, this Purim, to the poor and the needy. This is what we are commanded to do during the Purim. I hope that in my distress from the end of the world, this video will reach the thousands. Please read The Fall of Edom, The New Hamas, and my upcoming.
There you go. Well, that's probably enough. I actually have more that we could get into, but we're at about 2.5 hours. That's a pretty long day. But isn't that weird? Has anybody else heard that Gog and Magog means 70 and is associated with the 70 nations of Amalek? I've never heard that before. I'd always heard that it was Russia, Gog of Magog, or Gog of Magog, where Magog was Russia. Was that from Jimmy Evans or something like that? I heard that from. Maybe Heisner, maybe Michael Heisner. I think he's done some interpretations of Gog and Magog. I'd never heard that the gematria of it was 70 and it was associated with Amalek, which is associated with Iran. So that's new. It kind of fits. I mean, seal number 5 seems as though it was opened. You know, the martyrs who died as witnesses testifying to Jesus are saying, they're under the altar going, how much longer, Lord? Until judgment. And you got Daniel 12, which talks about a time of great tribulation. So this could be it. This could be the final battle. This could be the great tribulation right before the return of Yeshua. And boy, oh boy, I guess this really what this goes to show is it's impossible to understand these things until you're living them. Like nobody would ever think about this 20 years ago. You know, everything we've speculated on for you know, our entire lives, anytime anyone spent any time on this, never would have accounted for AI. Never would have thought that the world would be in the state that it is in right now. I mean, like just 10 years ago, the world was entirely different. Can you imagine? Can you remember back to how things changed because of COVID, because of the Biden administration, because of the woke mind virus. Can you imagine how many people, how many of these leftists who have been fighting for unsecured borders because they want the Mexicans to come in so that they can vote Democrats, or so that they can get additional get the census to give them additional seats so that they can keep Democrats in power, when really all this time they've been allowing the United States to be invaded so that Amalek can rise and try once again to kill the children of Israel. And we know how that's going to end. I imagine some will die. There's going to be martyrs. Servants and brothers will die as they are. Yeah, I mean, like, everything's coming together. Both Jews and Christians see where we are in the end times. I'd say some of us see better than others, because there are many, some of you guys probably in the chat today, who don't even think the seals have been opened. But I do believe the seals have been opened. I think we're right at seal number 5, and it looks like we're very close to the return of Christ. And if this does happen, then it really points to number 6 being the magnetic pole shift, which is interesting. As far as the coming in the clouds, that's an interesting one. He might be right about that. But I don't know. I kind of like the idea of Jesus showing up in a spaceship, because that's just way cooler. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like this content, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Comment if you have anything that you want to talk about in regards to what we learned tonight. Do you think that, the war with Iran is going to escalate into a global battle? Do you think people have invaded the United States? Let me know your thoughts. Let's continue this conversation. Yeah, and come back and visit us. I do these lives Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you guys. Shalom, shalom. The good news here is keep looking up. Messiah is coming soon. Your redemption is coming soon. God bless you guys. Shalom.